The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 116. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of successful women finding their inner journey to self-confidence 5 days a week. Subscribe to our newsletter by visiting thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Well, hello friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have a special lady who's all the way from Singapore, and she is a clinical Western herbalist and aromatherapist, and she's here today to share her story on self-confidence, and I'm just glad she took the time today just to share her story. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Alina Uchida. Alina, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to our listeners.
Hey, Sheena. Thanks so much for having me. Well, as you said, I'm from Singapore. I'm Japanese-Chinese, born in Singapore, raised in Sydney, where I spent a good the first half of my life. After that, I lived in France for a year, at 18, which was, I would say, one of the most transformational periods of my life. Being in a foreign country, not knowing the language, not having family or friends with me. It really, I think, being in that sort of environment teaches you to be super resourceful, and it does build your confidence, because you're basically starting from scratch. Being in that situation, it really contributed to a lot of what I am today. And then I've been in Singapore for the last 10 years. So I am in private practice as a clinical herbalist, although in more recent years, I've spent more time on my business called Abundant Earth, which focuses on providing natural wellness solutions to consumers and also education in that space, like educating people that there's an alternative to conventional medical treatments. And that's pretty much what I do right now.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And it's cool that you are educating people in alternative ways for, just healing. I always believe in doing the natural way than always, depending on pills and whatnot. And that's just my view. And, I'm glad that you're also doing the same thing.
Yeah. And it doesn't, I think often people think it has to be one or the other, but it doesn't have to be exclusively one or the other. I think both have their place in certain situations. So obviously if it's a life-threatening, time-urgent situation, then you would go for the conventional methods. But if it's a chronic allergy or a digestive problem or sleep problem, often natural treatments are a lot gentler, they're a lot safer, and they are effective. So you don't have to go 100% natural or 100% orthodox.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that as well. And what would be your self-confidence quote?
Those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. So I'm not too sure who said that. It's often been attributed to Roald Dahl, but it wasn't him. But I think that if you look at the source of self-doubt or low self-esteem, it's often fear, and it's usually fear of acceptance, fear of failure, and it's usually an external thing, worrying about what others think. So once you realize that, the people that really matter accept you as you are, I think that's quite a powerful realization.
I totally agree with you on that as well. I mean, the people who really care about you, even if they don't understand what you do, sometimes they'll always be there to support you. So I really love that quote. And in your own words, how would you define self-confidence?
For me, self-confidence is an attitude. It's an internal belief that you're enough. Like I said, I think the root of low confidence or low self-esteem is fear. So, fear of people thinking you're a failure or not accepting you, not liking you. So really believing you're enough. And, I think often we seek validation or self-worth in our status, in our jobs, the salary, the bag we carry, the brands we wear. We forget that these are just external elements and they may make us feel good. I mean, they do make us feel good. But once these are all stripped away, what are you? What do you have? So the true source of confidence is something internal. It's not external. And I think when you realize that you're enough as a unique individual, that's where your source of confidence comes from. And you could, really shine whether you're wearing pajamas or or a designer suit, when you had that confidence from within.
I totally agree. And, sometimes those material things, they only bring you like this temporary confidence. And not a lot of people realize that they are enough. Like they don't always have to, have designer bags, always wear makeup all the time. They can just be their authentic self and people will love them for who they are. So,
for sure. Or not. And it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, totally. So thanks for sharing that definition. And, what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
I think I floated around a lot. My confidence really came from being comfortable in my own skin. So, knowing who I am, after career, family, partners, friends, after, all these roles that I'm expected to play, knowing who I am after all these things are stripped away. And I think that really comes with age. So from my teens into my 20s, I think I was on a search of self-identity, trying to work out, what I liked, what inspired me, what made me excited. And throughout this time, I experiment. I try to be like my friends. I try to read books that people I admired were reading, dress like them, listen to the same sort of music. And I think it was a very experimental phase of my life because, muses and people that I admired always changed. So I came into my 30s still not knowing who I was. And I think after a very tough period in my life, which we'll go into shortly, that's where I had to take a break and pause and really do some deep searching and finding who I was.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And, like you said, you were going to get into it. What was that aha moment when you realized that, that search was over? You can finally be who you really are and not always have to, check what other people were doing, following what they like or what music they were listening to and et cetera.
Yeah, it was, so it was a key moment. I was in my early 30s, had a lot of dissatisfaction at work. I was working for a lifestyle company that, quite a well-known lifestyle company, very good role, but I wasn't excited by what I was doing. I wasn't looking forward to going to work every day. So I was a lot of dissatisfaction there. And it was also during the tail end of a tumultuous relationship that probably went on to much longer than it should have. So, when all these things started falling away, I left my job, the relationship ended. I just felt a desperate need to shut the whole world out. And I took a 6-month break from life. And I wouldn't even call it a sabbatical. I think sabbatical just sounds really exotic. It was like a literal pause from everyone and everything and almost like a self-imposed exile from the world. So it was a very painful, lonely, dark period of my life, but I think a very necessary one. Otherwise, I think I would have just floated through life. And I think it was during this time, without all the external distractions, that I finally met myself. I got to know my weaknesses, I accepted them, I reflected on the mistakes that I made, and I gave thanks for my strengths. Like I think these are the 3 things that we need to spend more time doing in order to get to know ourselves better, is acceptance, reflection, and gratitude. And I decided it was time to let go of pride and ego. And I think these 2 things are very destructive. They're very overrated and they're very destructive in life. So, it was through this tumultuous period that I got to know myself, and I think, and I recognize that I have so much power within that I give away so easily. And that goes for everyone. We all have so much power within, and we, especially as women, I think we just give it away too easily without even realizing. So that was a very powerful period of my life, and I think unfortunately it always takes something like that, like a drastic, catastrophe or big disappointment or failure for us to take a step back and really reassess what our lives are and who we are.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And, I believe that taking time for yourself is necessary. However you are able to do that, spend that time. Like you said, you took some time to yourself, even though you were in a dark time. It's still great because you get to know yourself a little bit more. And you get to find things about yourself that you never thought was possible. Maybe a new talent or, just something within you that makes you stronger and makes you who you are today. So, I'm really glad you were able to do that. And, what's your life like after that big realization?
I just want to add to that. I think taking time for yourself, it also makes you comfortable with your own company. And that's really important because, I don't know, like for me, I could never take a meal alone, or I could never go to movies alone, or, I'd feel lonely. And so during this time, I actually had to ask myself, like, what is it about myself that that's not enough? Like, why did I always need to be with someone? So I think taking time alone to be comfortable with your own company, it's really important for self-development.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, coming here to Hawaii was like something I would never do, just go to another island and just live by myself. But, it's one of the best experiences I ever had. I got to know myself, way more than I ever would. And, I would recommend anyone to just go out there and just explore yourself. So, yeah.
And it's not everyone, I think not everyone can take 6 months out, but even it could be scheduling you time 1 hour twice a week or 1 hour once a week even, just schedule yourself in. You schedule other people into your life and you always say, okay, I'll do this, I'll go for that painting class or I'll go for a swim when I have time. But that time never comes. So it's really important to learn how to schedule yourself into your own schedule.
Yes, for sure. So Alina, what's your life like now after that discovery?
I still have my ups and downs. Obviously there are still things that shake me up a little and things that make me feel insecure and, break down my confidence. But I think the main difference is that now, instead of going back and hiding in my shell, I recognize that, the self-doubt and the self-validation are all thought patterns that need to change rather than a fact. So knowing that gives me a lot of strength and stability. It's recognizing that, if I have that voice that says, you really think you can do that? I will take it as it's a thought pattern, it's a habit, and it's not a fact. That question is not a fact. And I've learned to combat that with another, a positive thought.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And, if a woman's listening to your episode, she's also on her own journey to self-confidence, what would be that one tip you would give to her?
I'd say talk to your fear. So fear is that inner voice that tells you you're not good enough or you're not capable enough. Your idea is crazy. I think literally talk to that voice as soon as you hear it. So, it could be something like, maybe I'm not good enough, but I've been given this opportunity and I'm just going to show up. I think but and yet, these are really small words, but they are really powerful words. They change the whole meaning of a sentence if you use it. So the power of but and yet. So talk to your fear. Don't recognize your fears as fact. And I really like the quote by Van Gogh who says, if you hear a voice within you say you cannot paint, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. So, that it's really, if a fear comes up in your mind, either talk to it or act it out and prove it wrong.
I love it. And I love that tip you said, talk to your fears, right? It's a lot of us just, always worry about what could go wrong when there's so many things that can go right. And it just takes the same amount of energy to think those things. So thanks for sharing that. And if our listeners wanted to get to know a little bit more of what you do, is there any links or any social media profiles we can connect with?
We have an online retail store called it's www.abundantearth.sg, and Facebook page Abundant Earth SG, Instagram also the same, and they can always drop me a mail at alina@abundantearth.sg.
Awesome. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Alina, you can also head on over to thetaoofselfconfidence.com and search for Alina's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else we talked about. And I really want to thank Alina for taking the time to share her journey with us. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Gina.
Not a problem. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another amazing episode of another woman's journey to self-confidence. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to another amazing episode of the Tao of Self-Confidence. Check out our resources to help you jumpstart your inner journey to self-confidence by visiting thetaoofselfconfidence.com.